All right, morning everyone. Morning. Okay guys, all right, so what I did last night till 1:30 is I've actually taped everything that I wanted to say today, and we're taking it slowly, okay? So if you think about it, let me just show you what I've done here. And the people at home, maybe now, hang on. So we've got this 3-lesson thing. So today, epidermal plant tissue, hang on, meristematic. Oh yes, we're doing epidermal today. So we're doing lesson 3, 4 and 5, and then tomorrow we're doing lesson 6. Alright, so that's what, if you go and look at home, you just need to, okay, so people at home, we're doing lesson 3, 4 and 5 today, because now the different classes, choice 1 and choice 3, are not doing one lesson on, on, when was it, Monday, and 2 yesterday. So now choice 1 is here for 3 today, then 1 tomorrow, and choice 3 is here for 3 tomorrow and 1 on Friday. So it gets a little bit hairy, okay? So we're doing 3, 4, and 5 in choice 1 today, and you guys are going to do 6. And that's actually just marking. All right, we're going to do that in class tomorrow. So what I've done, so this is, I've called it the epidermal plant tissue, whatever. So this is lesson 3, okay? So I've actually done a video where I revised meristematic plant tissue, but we've done that in class. We can just look at it quickly again, and then I talk about epidermal plant tissue, so that's for the first half an hour, and then for lesson 2 and 3 now today, then I've got 2 other little bits. Okay, so you can always go and look at those if you want, okay? That's just for the people at home because, it goes differently here. Alright, so now I need to get into my PowerPoint. Okay, that's not going to help us because that's circulation. Okay, we just think about this now. Let's see if I've got it here. Because at the moment I'm saving on Dropbox, J Drive, and on, what do you call it? Dropbox, J Drive, Google Cloud. Right. I don't know. No, it's not going to be clear. So let's go back to classroom. I'll move in a second. Why don't I just look here? There's the PDF version on Google Classroom. There we go. Everything's there. It's just not a normal PowerPoint. Okay. So it's a good idea for going to grade 10. Yeah. That might help. Alright, so we implant tissues. Textbook, videos. Epidermal. And I'm looking for the plant.
I think it's on the second lesson.
Yeah, I think you're right. Sorry, I was just typing emails before you got here. And I didn't realize.
Oh, it's at the bottom now.
Yeah, there it is. No, that's a
The PowerPoint.
Alright, so I'm just going to use this one. It's the PDF one, so it doesn't look as great, but let's just use that one anyway. Okay, so every time we start something new, I'm now putting this in. Okay, so just to remind you where we're going every single time. Alright, so yesterday we looked at meristematic tissue. Alright, and meristematic tissue, how would you recognize it under a microscope?
It's cube-shaped, intercellular spaces.
Yeah, very small cells, cube-shaped, squashed tightly together. Alright, so we're looking here, meristematic tissue, the cells that are dividing, and then they become the permanent tissues, the actual tissues that make up the plant. So they are very small cells, they've got large nuclei, and the cytoplasm isn't very big because they haven't had time to do that yet. But then these little cells are going to differentiate and become all these other tissues. Epidermis, parenchyma, whatever. Just like in that little embryo, human embryo, that a ball of cells that looks exactly the same, all right, something like that, that might become a muscle cell in your biceps muscle. That might become a nerve cell. This might become a stomach or a cell that lines your trachea with little cilia or little villi. Okay, so that's basically how it works. Are you happy with meristematic? Do I need to go through that it occurs in roots, in the tip of roots and in the lateral buds and the apical buds again? Do I need to do that again? Are we all happy with that? All right, so have you all got your tables here? I want you to look at that as well. Okay. All right, so we need to now cover this plant. I feel like, because I taped it last night, that I've already done it with you, but I haven't done epidermal with you, yes?
No, ma'am.
I just feel like I have, because I did it last night. Okay. All right, so on your table, that summary table, we've only done the first row. That's it, meristematic tissue, and it links to mitosis. Because when we did mitosis, we said, where does mitosis occur in a plant? Tip of the root, lateral buds to become leaves and flowers and branches, and the terminal bud to make the stem grow longer. Just like Mr. Anderson said, plants grow lengthways, and then as they get older, do you remember him saying, you know, just like us, we start to go sideways, hey? He made that joke. Okay, so meristematic tissue enables plants to grow longer, and then as they become older, like a little, okay, this pretend plant here, if it lived, okay, so in the first year it makes nice soft leaves and stems, but in the second year it could become a little tree. So every year, as something becomes a tree, it starts to grow wider. So that stem will make wood, and that's called secondary growth. And we're only going to do that much later on after midterm. Okay, so now, if you look at this table, okay, guys at home as well, if you look at the table, we are now going to look at epidermal tissue. So I've given an introduction to what is epidermal tissue, and we've discussed it actually using the models already. And then I've said, well, specialized epidermal cells. Because in the video it said plants lead a double life. Part of it underground, part of it in the air. And that's actually quite a nice way to explain it. Because the epidermis in a root is not going to be exactly the same as the epidermis covering a stem or leaf. So I've got root hairs there, and then, whoops, on the second page, and we already saw this in the video, is that the epidermis covering a leaf has got two things. What? What's that layer that covers it?
The waxy cuticle.
The waxy cuticle. What does it prevent? Too much?
Evaporation.
Evaporation called? Transpiration. And then what were those other funny shaped cells? Hey, the bean-shaped or the kidney-shaped cells. Hey? The guard cells. And what do? They move apart to allow the stoma to open. One stoma, many stomata. All right, and if the stomata are open, what can happen through those little pores on the leaves or the green stems? Two things.
Allow water to come out.
Water in the form of water, vapor, we call that transpiration. Okay, and then also what substances can move in and out the leaf?
Sugar.
In and out the leaf, between the leaf and the air. What can move?
CO2.
What can move in and out? CO2 and oxygen, because plants use and produce both. So, okay, let's just revise that quickly. So if a plant is photosynthesizing, what gas does it need?
Oxygen. Oh, I mean CO2.
CO2.
Sorry.
What gas does it produce?
Oxygen.
Yay, we can breathe, okay? But it also respires. So the mitochondria use which gas?
Oxygen.
Oxygen, just like we do. We're going to respire, and they will break down some of their glucose as well to make, what's the function of cell respiration?
Energy.
Energy. They need energy to grow and to make cells and to flower, make flowers and fruit. So they use oxygen to break down some of their glucose at the mitochondria. And then what gas is given off? CO2. Just like we breathe out CO2, and extra CO2 will come out of the leaves or be used for photosynthesis. And then also they make water, and then, we know that plants absorb, well, if the ground's wet, they absorb lots of water, and most of that transpires. Up to 95, 99% transpires out. The rest is staying inside the plant and it's used for photosynthesis. Because photosynthesis, okay, see, I did this on the videos last night as well. We just do it in a bit of a different order. So in photosynthesis, carbon dioxide is absorbed from the air, or it's used, it's already in the leaf from cell respiration. And then what do they get from the soil? Water.
And
then
minerals.
what do they make?
Energy.
I think I'm off the board now. Okay, photosynthesis. CO2 and water combine to form
Glucose.
glucose. What waste product or byproduct is produced?
Oxygen.
Yay, we can breathe. All right, so where was I going with that? Okay, so they can take in CO2 through their stomata, or they can use the CO2 that came from cell respiration.
Ma'am,
Okay.
what's a stomata again?
Okay, I'm going to get to that again. So those are the little pores. We'll go through the pictures just now. They're the little pores on the surface of green leaves or green stems. The little guard cells open up, and the little pore is open, and now gaseous exchange can happen and transpiration.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're just tying it up now. So plants do both. Cell respiration, they will use which gas?
O2.
Oxygen to break down
Glucose.
glucose, which they made. So they break down some of their own glucose. What waste, hang on, why do they and we, what is the main function of cell respiration? To make
ATP.
energy. What waste products do they give off?
H2O.
And CO2. So they can use that CO2 for photosynthesis. Then they give off oxygen, which luckily a lot of that is released and we can breathe. We are aerobic, but they can also use that oxygen for respiration. They do both. And if they need more CO2, they can get it from the air. And if they need more oxygen, they can get it from the air. If there's too much CO2 in the leaves, it goes out of the leaves through the stomata. If there's too much oxygen, luckily there is, and they release oxygen and we breathe. So they do both. Okay, we got that.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so now let's go through. We're going to go through the PowerPoint on, okay, so what is epidermal tissue? You're going to look at the models and try and figure out what's going on here. Okay, so.
It's almost like the skin tissue, like we are.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, so if I look here now, let's go down. Okay, there was that funny picture. We've done meristematic tissue. That ties with mitosis. So there we go. Okay, now hang on. You can go back one slide here. No, don't go back too far. There, that's what I'm looking for. It's not the normal PowerPoint now. Okay, so a root. So I don't have a model of a root. All right, but that's the very tip of a root. And it's also the whole plant, in fact. The roots, the stems, the leaves, the flowers, the fruits, they're all going to be covered by this layer called the,
Axicuticle.
okay, hang on, which layer of cells? This tissue
epidermis.
called the epidermis. All right? And sometimes there might be a number of layers of epidermis, like if the plant's living in a desert and is trying to save water. All right, so the root, the very, very tip of a root, all right? That's the tip of the root, because if I look at this diagram there, that's a bit longer. So the whole root on the outside is covered with epidermis. You can't get nice models. I've been looking for years. All right, and there's the epidermis.
Is there an
surrounding the root.
axicuticle?
Okay, and let's go here now. So there is just the tip of a root, and these cells, where's my stick? Where's my stick? My pointy stick, okay? Substitute. All right, so covering that whole root on the outside is epidermis. All right, and some of those cells, see, I feel like I haven't taught this to you because I did the videos last night. Okay, so some of these cells, can you see it's got a little extension? Look there. So that, I'm looking at, it looks a bit, so there's the cell and there's an extension. If there's an extension, what is increased? Surface area. What do roots do? They absorb water and
Minerals.
minerals. Yeah, I don't like to call them nutrients. You know why? Because to me, nutrients are amino acids and sugars and stuff. Okay, which we get from the food. They absorb water with mineral salt, and it goes through the plant. A lot of the water is transpired, and then along the way, the water keeps the cells turgid. It helps with photosynthesis, fills the vacuoles, all that kind of stuff. Okay? So, plant roots absorb water with minerals or salts. I don't call them nutrients. To me, that's different. Okay, so in order to increase the surface area near the very, very tip of a root, there are these tiny little extensions of some of the epidermal cells. You can see that some of them there have got these little extensions. So we call it a unicellular root hair. That's it. One little root hair. It's in a little extension. There is now more surface area here for that root to absorb water. Okay, just like the villi in your small intestine, there's lots of them so you can absorb nutrients from your intestine and into your blood. Okay, guys? Happy?
So the surface area increases for photosynthesis.
Hang on. This is a root. The surface area is increased because there are lots of little root hairs for absorption of water and salt. We are under the ground now.
Okay.
We are under the ground. But then remember, further back in the older part of the root, there's going to be those big branch roots. You know when you see roots kind of sticking out of the ground next to trees?
Yeah.
Those are huge. Those are huge branch roots made by the pericycle. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the epidermis that covers the root and right near the... So the rest of the root won't have root hairs. Only the very tip, and those root hairs are like a millimeter long. These are tiny. Alright, and they increase surface area so that the plant can absorb more water. So Hannah's question was, will they have a cuticle?
No.
Will they have a waxy layer?
No.
Because they've got to absorb water. Okay, so that's why in your notes on the table, okay, if we look at the first row, it says epidermal tissue. It's the outermost layer that covers roots, stems, leaves, fruits, seeds, flowers. The cells are tightly packed because they're next to the air. They're going to be tightly packed, protecting and covering the organ. All right? They don't contain chloroplast. But from the video, which epidermal cells do contain chloroplast?
Leaves.
On leaves and stems, and they're called? The bean-shaped or kidney-shaped ones? Guard cells. Those are the only ones that contain chloroplast. Okay, so I said the cells do not contain chloroplast, but then further down, where it says specialized epidermal cells on page 2, I said, hang on, there are some. The guard cells contain chloroplast. Okay, so waxy cuticle, the layer covering the leaves. I'll show you some pictures just now. And that cuticle prevents too much water loss. All right, so now we're looking at roots. So this root is not going to have a cuticle because then it's not going to be able to absorb water. Okay? All right, so we're happy that they are unicellular, and these root hairs, they're called root hair cells, unicellular root hair cells, and it's just an extension of the cell wall and the cell membrane of the plant cell, and the cytoplasm goes in. And it's just about being able to absorb more water from the surrounding soil. That's it. Okay, are we happy?
Yes.
All right, let's move to the...
So, ma'am, there's places where we must fill in. So can we just fill them in?
Yeah, I'll go through it as well.
Okay.
I will go. Okay, so on this diagram, so the epidermis... Where's my stick? Okay, so now we're looking on the outside of the root. Now I want to buy a model like this, which shows the inside of the root, just like my big stem model. I'll show you that again just now. But you can't get them. So there's the epidermis, all right? And you can see that some of the cells are modified to form a root hair. And it's just about absorbing more water and salts, and then the water and salts move across the root into the middle where the xylem is, and then they go up. So we're going to get to a diagram like this. We're going to colour in. All right, it's called a stereogram, three-dimensional. Okay, it looks nice. You can see from outside to inside of the root. All right. Next slide. Okay. So let's just check now in our table before we do that. So root hairs, I've said, what are they? Structure, location. They are unicellular outgrowths of root epidermal cells, but it's only the tip of the root, by an extension of the cell wall. They increase the surface area of the root for of
H2O.
and
Mineral salts.
and
Mineral salts.
mineral salts. Inorganic salts, salts, mineral salts, they're synonyms. Okay, that's it. All right.
What's the one on top that cuticle prevents?
I'm going to get to that now.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. All right, so now that's a root. It's the underground life, hey? The plant's what it's doing under the ground. Now we've got to think differently because the rest of the plant is above the ground. That's where the sunlight is. So what's going to be a problem? Too much?
Oh, water loss.
Water loss by?
Transpiration.
Transpiration. So they can't have epidermal cells with root hairs and no cuticle because then the water's going to go out. They've got to have ways to prevent that. Okay, so young stems and leaves have got ways to prevent too much water loss. Right, leave that like that. Okay. Okay, so my famous models. Oh, wait, I can't put that there because then they can't see. I have shown this to you, huh?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I feel like I'm doing things in quadruplicate at the moment. Alright, so once again, inside the leaf, there it's very thin, but if you cut through it, that's what it looks on the inside of the leaf. So it's a nice stereogram model, okay? It shows it in 3 dimensions. Alright, so the PowerPoint, let's have a look here. Okay, I haven't got the whole thing yet, it was just to show, just the top. Right, so there's the upper epidermis covering the top of the leaf. Alright? This model was a little bit inaccurate, but you can see here there's no colour. The epidermal cells covering the top of the leaf, they don't have chloroplast. Alright? But they secrete this waxy layer like a polish. So when you go home, when you're at home or you've spilled some water on your table, if it's not polished, it leaves that white mark. You know that? Do you know how to get it out?
No.
Put mayonnaise on.
What?
Because the oil goes back in and makes the mark go away.
Oh.
So you take watermarks off, okay? Alright. But anyway, so if we want to protect wood at home, we cover it with a layer of polish. And that's going to prevent, in plants, too much transpiration. Because they've got all this surface area, all these leaves. There's so much surface area that they could transpire all their water out and wilt. So I've got 2 plants at home, and I always moan at everyone. Because I say, you walk past this plant, it's hanging down, wilted, and nobody waters it. Yes? And they ignore me, okay? There's 2 plants, they're called peace lily, and they really dehydrate really quickly. You've got to watch them. I watered one last night because it was looking like this. So they transpire a lot, even though it's cold now. There's no sun where it is, but they still transpire. So that waxy cuticle prevents too much transpiration. They will still transpire through, but not as much as if that waxy layer wasn't there, and it's secreted by the cells. So that's the top layer covering the epidermis. All right, and then on the inside, and we'll get to this after midterm. Oh no, I'm doing parenchyma today, okay? We're going to look at the parenchyma inside the leaf, the photosynthesizing tissue, this part here. Alright? And do you remember onion epidermis? When you peeled off that layer inside the onion? That's epidermis. They are long, more or less rectangular shaped cells. They would have a big vacuole in the middle, ER, Golgi body, but no chloroplast, because the onion is white. Alright. So those are also epidermal cells. They are covering cells lining the actual white. Those leaves, the onion that we eat is white leaves. They just don't have chlorophyll. They store lots of, in fact, there's quite a bit of sugar and potassium in onions and some starch. Okay, so that's onion epidermal cells, that thin layer that you peeled off. Okay, we're nearly finished. Okay.
Now, I don't know if this is a stupid question, but
Yeah.
what about red onions?
They would just have, so remember we did chromoplasts, which make colour. So it's either plastids called chromoplasts with a different colour pigment, or some plants, they're vacuoles, like beetroot. The vacuole is filled with a pigment.
Oh.
That's why when you cook beetroot, everything just leaks out, because you cut the beetroot top and bottom, and all the pigment leaks out because it was in the vacuoles.
Okay. Now,
Okay.
so why would red onions be red if it's like still underground when other one?
It's just, like why do you get orange sweet potato and the
Oh,
white?
okay.
It's variation. Do you know that carrots, the real colour is purple?
Yeah.
So nowadays they're starting to grow all these different colours. Carrots, yellow, orange, purple, I think those are the main colours. White carrots, like they look like turnips. Those were the original ones that were grown in like South America hundreds of years ago, and they've been selectively breeding them and saying, oh no, people will only like orange ones. Well, now we actually like all these other ones, but I've never seen them. I've never bought them myself. Jamie Oliver always talks about all these colours of carrots. Okay, all right, so we're nearly finished. Guard cells. Okay, so I said just now that the top of a leaf, there's only normal epidermal cells. Okay, and they could have many different shapes, you'll see just now. So there's only normal epidermal cells, and they do not have chloroplast. This model is a bit odd because it shows, no guard cells. It shows that there are some guard cells on the top. Most leaves don't have guard cells on the top, because if the guard cells were on the top, alright, so here's my plant. If the guard cells are on the top and they open, what's going to happen to the plant? If there's guard cells on the top and they move apart and the pores are open, they're going to lot of water by transpiration. So the top surface generally has no guard cells, and it's got this waxy cuticle to prevent too much transpiration. So most leaves, and I'm not going to go into the whole botany of all the different species and how their guard cells differ, because then I'm just going to drive you mad. Okay, but most leaves, the bottom part of the leaf is where the guard cells are, because they're nicely hidden. They're underneath. So if the plant opens them to transpire and get water moving through the plant, they're not going to wilt too much. So generally, there's more guard cells on the lower surfaces of the leaves. Generally. Okay. So when he talks about monocot and dicot, not all of them have it, but I'm saying lower surface of the leaf is where you generally find more guard cells, because then when they open, transpiration can occur and the plant won't wilt too quickly. Because if the guard cells are on the top, there's a lot of sunlight, too much transpiration. Right. Okay, just close there, and I'm going to switch this video off now. Then we'll have a break, and then we'll do parenchyma, and then we're done.
So then the opening of the stomata allows for transpiration.
Okay.
But it's only at the bottom, so that not a lot of water can come.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I've got the same, or similar. This is slightly different. So that's looking at, that is a photo looking at a tiny little bit at the bottom of a leaf. So can you see the normal epidermal cells here?
Mm-hmm.
There they are. But they are the two guard cells. What shape do they have?
A bean.
Bean shape or kidney shape, like a kidney bean or your kidneys. What do they have that's different? What's inside them? What are these little green things?
Chloroplast.
Chloroplast. So they've got chloroplast with chlorophyll in them. Do the other epidermal cells covering the leaf have chloroplast?
No.
No. So it's only the epidermal cells, the normal epidermal cells, they don't have chloroplast, but only the guard cells do. Alright, and there's a reason for it. And that's actually on the next slide. In fact, I must maybe, I need to be able to draw. Alright, so just remember that. Normal leaf epidermal cells do not have chloroplast, so this is covering the leaf, you're looking at the surface, but the guard cells do, and there's the opening. So it's called a stoma. So what's stomata? Plural. So what he said in the video was wrong, and then I cringe. Because I know he's, like people say, what's this?
Mitochondria.
That's plural.
Mitochondria.
This is a mitochondrion. If there's many, it's mitochondria. All right, pretend that this is some, not a virus, but the other germ. What's the other germ? Viruses and bacteria. So one bacteria, many bacteria. And when they are on TV, they interview doctors and they say, one bacteria, and I cringe. But we still know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so that was just a little bit extra. Okay, so we all know what normal epidermal cells, guard cells, and the stoma looks like, yes? Okay, great. So can you see now how the epidermis is different on the leaf, but on the root, it is root hairs. So it's modified. Okay. So there's another little picture. I think I'm giving you this one.
You've given us both.
Yeah. Okay. So there's just a picture showing the normal epidermal cells and the bean-shaped or kidney-shaped guard cells. And it's showing, okay, those are the two guard cells, and the blue arrow is the stoma. All right? I think I need to just move this across. Getting it. Okay. Then here, how do they work? All right. Okay, it's quite interesting, but this is an old theory. So if you go study botany, they're going to say I'm wrong. Okay, but I'm not going to give you the newest theory because that's just way too much. All right, so these cells contain chloroplasts. I should use green. They're chloroplasts. Okay, so what do chloroplasts make? Glucose. What is glucose?
Sugar.
It's a sugar. So if you have something very sweet, what do you want afterwards?
Water.
Water. So the surrounding epidermal cells, the ones that don't have chloroplasts, the ones that are just covering the leaf, okay, they've got vacuoles, nucleus, etc., cytoplasm. Okay, there's a vacuole there as well. So which cell, the guard cell or the normal epidermal cell, will have a higher water concentration?
The normal cell.
Because it doesn't have as much sugar. Okay, so this is a low water concentration, and the water concentration of the guard cell will be, what did I say?
No.
Yeah, you mean, I was also
High water concentration, because there are sugars, but not as much. But the water concentration of the cell sap in the vacuole of the guard cells is
low.
low. Can you see why we do osmosis? So, in which direction will water move?
Into the cell.
Both ways.
Both.
Move.
Okay, but more water will move
Into.
in than out. Because remember, water molecules are small enough, they can fit. So if water fills up that vacuole, can you see it becomes bigger?
And then it's.
And then it's almost like blowing those bendy balloons, and then they go like this. And there's actually thicker walls here, and they pull apart. It's like someone, I didn't mention this in the video last night, but yeah, botched. You know, botched.
Oh, yeah.
And then these guys, they
Yeah.
come in, or ladies, guys, whatever, and they come in with these big lips and they can't close their mouth. It's because they've got so much collagen in their lips, or filler, that they can't close it anymore. So it's exactly the same. So when water moves from that normal epidermal cell in, the vacuoles increase in size and it pulls the two cells apart
So it's
to
like-
open up the stoma.
And
So
it's
now-
like they release the water.
So now they can lose water by transpiration, or they can exchange
Gases.
gases.
That makes so much sense.
Isn't that easy? But there's another theory, it's called the potassium ion theory, and I'm not doing that with you. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And there you go, there's a lovely picture. Right, so here we have, okay, there's the two guard cells. Here's a normal epidermal cell, part of their normal. So more wall, okay, this is actually the thick cell wall here. Right, it's slightly thickened on the inside of the cell, so sort of like that. And then more water is going to move in. These vacuoles in the guard cells are going to expand, and the stoma opens. So transpiration can occur because plants lose up to even 99% of what they absorb. Obviously, if it's dry like now and we're not watering our garden, they're not going to transpire as much. But if it's summer and it's raining and the ground's waterlogged, they will transpire a lot. And it just means that water and salts are moving through. They're very active. They're very active in summer. They're growing. They're making leaves. I need a break. Leaves, flowers, fruits, and they need lots of water. Okay, guys, I need to stop.